Good morning. I want to share some final reflections with you on waiting. For some things, the wait's now over. As a province, we enter phase 2 of BC's restart plan, and provincial parks, many of them are open now for day use. Starting this week, stores, restaurants, hair salons, a host of other things are going to start opening once again. And yet, we continue to wait. I continue to stare out at an empty sanctuary, gatherings of more than 50 people as part of phase 4, one of the only phases to not have a date set upon it. Life now is still very different. It's a new normal we all have to try to get used to, and we've been reflecting on what it looks like to wait on the Lord. And we've talked about waiting patiently. We've looked at waiting with perspective. We've talked about waiting in a God-centered way, and last time we looked at what it looks like to wait obediently. And today, in this fifth and final reflection on waiting, I want to talk about waiting joyfully. And again, these reflections have all been rooted in a sermon on Habakkuk 2 by Tim Keller that helped me tremendously in my own season of waiting. Habakkuk 2:4 ends with these words, "But the righteous will live by faith." It's an invitation to look not so much at the circumstances around us, and not so much to look at our own strength or inner capacity, but rather to look towards and look upon God's purposes. To look upon what God has done, what God will do. And what do we see when we think about waiting and what God has done? What we see is something quite startling. We see that God waits upon us. That we worship a God who's waited upon us in the past and a God who promises to wait upon us in the future. Let me explain what I mean by that. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus tells us a parable. It's a parable about a master who goes away on a trip and leaves behind his servants. Some of the servants are faithful. Some of them are obedient. They expect the master to return, and so they wait obediently and work until he comes. And some of the other servants, they're unfaithful. They're disobedient. They're not really sure. They don't expect, actually, that the master will come back. And Jesus is sharing this parable to talk about waiting on the Lord. And then he says something quite startling at the end of this parable. Verse 33, let me read it for us. "It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. I tell you the truth, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them." Jesus is talking about his final return, and he's using the image of a waiter. We talked about this last time. Waiters don't sit idly, they serve. They wait upon those at table. But Jesus is talking about his return, notice. Notice what he's saying. Jesus is saying, at the end of time, I'm going to have all of my people sit down at the table, and I am going to gird myself to wait upon them, to serve them. What does it mean to gird? It's an image of focusing all of your strength on something. That it literally means to pick up your flowing robe and tuck it into your belt so that it wouldn't get in your way. You wouldn't trip on it. You could work in a kind of focused way. And Jesus is saying, on that day when I return, I'm going to focus all of my strength. And notice what he's going to focus his strength on serving us at table, on honoring us, waiting upon us, bringing us unspeakable joy and delight as he serves us with all of his strength. Here's how Tim Keller puts it. He says, I'm going to concentrate all the infinities and immensities of my being on making you, on inflicting in you absolute, incredible, cosmic, infinite joy. That's what I'm going to do. If you wait for me, if you wait on me your whole life, I will literally wait on you. I will gird myself, and I will serve you. In fact, Jesus gives us a taste of that, doesn't he? That last night he was with his disciples. Once again, he girded himself, and he got down on his hands and his knees, and he washed his disciples' feet. He served. He acted like a servant. They were shocked. He acted like one waiting on tables, and they had a hard time accepting that humble act of service, and yet it was only the beginning. He was about to go to the cross. The ultimate act of service, as Paul puts it, he empties himself. He lays down his life. He serves us to the very end. He gives up everything so that we might share in his unspeakable joy. And so as we wait on the Lord and as we learn to wait, let me encourage you to keep your eyes on Jesus. See how he waited on us in the past, going to the cross, enduring such unimaginable suffering, giving up everything, his own life, to break the curse, to undo all that sin has ruined. And see this promise of how, when he returns in glory, he will wait upon us in the future. He will once again wash our feet, serve us, shower us with grace and joy for all of eternity, focusing all his energy on humbly serving us. What amazing grace. What an amazing God. And so may we learn to wait on him, to wait patiently, to wait prospectively, to wait God-centrically, to wait obediently, and yes, even to wait joyfully. Be blessed. Amen.